So imagine you're a teenager. You've been taken from your home, you're a prisoner in a foreign empire, and your very first test comes down to what's for dinner. It sounds simple, right? But for a young man named Daniel, this was a life-altering choice, and his decision would end up changing the course of history.
And it all starts right here, with this one powerful decision. With all this pressure to just fit in, to conform, a young captive makes a quiet but firm decision in his own heart. And that single choice, it's going to set off a chain of events that will ripple right through the empire.
Okay, so to really get the weight of Daniel's choice, we need to understand the world he was just thrown into. I mean, this wasn't just a new zip code, this was an all-out battle for his very soul. Now, these guys weren't just random prisoners of war. Nope, they were the best and the brightest, the absolute elite of Judah's youth. And they were handpicked for a very specific reason: to be completely re-educated, assimilated, and basically transformed into loyal mouthpieces for the Babylonian state.
And that whole assimilation process, it started immediately with a full-on assault on their identities. Just look at this. Their Hebrew names, which all point back to their God, were swapped out for Babylonian ones. Daniel's new name, Belteshazzar, literally means Bel's prince, a shout-out to Babylon's #1 god. This wasn't just a nickname, you guys. It was a calculated move to completely reprogram their loyalties.
So, this is the key. When Daniel refused the king's fancy food and wine, it had nothing to do with him being a picky eater. He was rejecting anything that would make him spiritually unclean or compromise his faith. He was drawing a line in the sand. It was a stand against the religious and cultural corruption that was all around him. But wait a minute, how did these kids, nobles no less, end up as captives in the first place? Well, to really understand their courage, we have to rewind a bit and look at the geopolitical chaos that literally tore their world apart and landed them in Babylon.
So this timeline really shows how it all went down. It was like a domino effect. The old superpower Assyria just collapses, leaving this huge power vacuum. Judah gets caught in this massive tug-of-war between Egypt and the new kid on the block, Babylon. And then, wham! Babylon's huge victory at Carchemish totally seals Judah's fate. That leads directly to the siege of Jerusalem and Daniel being hauled off to Babylon.
All right, so let's get back to the palace. Daniel's made up his mind, but now he has to actually do something about it. And he makes this incredibly bold request that puts his handler's career and maybe even his life on the line.
And let me tell you, the danger was 100% real. This was not a negotiation between equals. The response from the chief official basically lays it all out. If Daniel and his friends show up looking unhealthy, their supervisor would literally lose his head. So yeah, failure was not an option.
But here's this little detail that changes absolutely everything. Daniel's crazy, risky proposal didn't just come out of nowhere. The text tells us that a relationship of trust and respect had already been built between them. That foundation of goodwill is what made this whole dangerous conversation even possible. And just look at how smart this is. Daniel doesn't just stomp his feet and say no. He comes up with a logical, measurable, and pretty low-risk plan. He basically proposes a scientific experiment. Hey, give us 10 days. We'll eat just vegetables, what the text calls pulse, grains, beans, and water. Then you can compare us to the other guys. It's a brilliant strategy that respects authority while staying true to his principles.
And this is the absolute heart of the whole story. While everyone's focused on the menu, vegetables versus the king's 5-star cuisine, the real test was always about faith. The outcome wasn't going to depend on the nutritional value of beans and water. It was all about whether God would bless them for their faithfulness.
So, the 10 days are up, the experiment is over, and the results are in, and they are nothing short of astonishing.
The test was a massive, undeniable success. They didn't just look okay. They looked better, healthier, more vibrant than all the other trainees who were feasting on the king's finest. And that little victory, it earned them the right to stick to their diet for the entire 3 years of training.
And now it's time for the final exam. After 3 years of quietly doing their thing, they are brought before the most powerful man in the world, King Nebuchadnezzar himself, for a one-on-one interview. Talk about pressure.
So what was the result? Well, after the king personally quizzed them, he found that Daniel and his friends weren't just a little better. They were 10 times more capable in wisdom and understanding than all the professional magicians and astrologers in his entire kingdom. 10 times better.
So what's the big picture takeaway here? What was the real long-term impact of this one decision?
Let's take a look at how this one quiet act of integrity from a teenager just echoed through history.
Well, their faithfulness was rewarded with these incredible gifts of knowledge and wisdom, and that shot them right into positions of major influence. Daniel's career lasted for decades, which put him in this unique spot to actually help his people in captivity and, just maybe, even influence King Cyrus's historic decision to finally let the Jews go home.
It all started with a simple choice made in the heart, and it really leaves us with a question for our own lives, doesn't it? What is the true, long-term impact of a single decision made on principle? What kind of ripples could a choice you make today create that you can't possibly see right now?